Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be looking at 8 Ball issue number 8 in the complete 8 Ball. This is the new collection from Fantagraphics. Because I didn't read 8 Ball when it was coming out, I've read some of the material collected. I've just been going through and doing this one issue at a time and been learning a lot. This is a real time capsule of a comic. It's very very constrained by the early 90s, I think. So it's interesting because I can see the impact it had, but also I think a lot of this work just doesn't hold up. Clowes is a phenomenal cartoonist. We all know that. It's always, I think, dangerous to revisit things that were so impactful, but also so tied to a time. So I've been enjoying that. I've been enjoying kind of seeing, okay, yeah, this obviously had this impact, but also thinking about that idea of time. Um, this issue 8, on the inside front cover for the first time, has a bunch of ads, and I do appreciate that everything in this is obviously hand done. Like Clowes put these ads together himself. I really like that. That's cool. I missed at first. It's in the back of the issue, but I missed the little inside front cover like interview format that he has in all the other episodes. Sad to see that go, but there is a similar feature in the book. Then we're back to like a velvet glove cast in iron. We're back to another Dan Clowes just wanting to draw faces. I mean, he can obviously draw whatever, but he really likes that just face forward symmetrical face on the front. At this point, I'm pretty much done with this story. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what it's about. It's just David Lynch dark surrealism. So I'm just enjoying the vibe of it, but I'm not trying to understand it or make any sense of it. Pretty turned off by how this episode of it ended, where the character who has been searching for this actress goes into a very small, what looks like a porno booth, like a viewing room with basically what looks like a snuff film in it. This guy has sex with this woman and then shoots her in the head. And then these people come and take it and bury her, and then they shoot the guy that had sex with her in the head and bury him too. And I don't know. I'm not going to say that I don't have story thoughts like that in my head. I don't know. I don't think I do. Like, I have a lot of screwed up stuff in my head, but there's just nothing that ever makes me want to make something like that. I get the appeal of just going, what I think is happening in this story. I don't think it's planned out. I think he's just making it up as he goes. And I get the appeal from the maker's standpoint of that, but I really just don't get artists that lean into this gross stuff. Robert Crumb, when Clowes does it, I don't really like it. There's just, it's not for me, not my thing. Masterfully done, not for me. Cool to see this letter pages here with all these little illustrations. This is one's quite funny here with the blowjob machine. But on this letter page, I really like this letter from Don Simpson. I'm assuming the cartoonist Don Simpson, because he gives basically I'm assuming he's joking, but I think this is actually a fairly good summary of like how I feel about 8 Ball in general. Dear Dan, you make me sick, Clowes. You get your comic 8 Ball, should be hate ball, and all you do is piss on fanboys and art students, which you yourself once were. Can't you think of something more positive to do with your energy and make your work less ugly? And Jesus fucking Christ, what the fuck is going on page 22, panel 4? Those legs under the table must be 6 feet long. Where's your fucking sense of proportion? So that's where you can tell that he's just having some fun and kind of reiterating the general criticism of 8 Ball. So it's nice for me to see that letter, to see that even at the time, I think a lot of the attitude in the book is very tied to the early 90s, but it's nice to see that at the time people were at least jokingly criticizing it for the same thing. And Clowes must have known as well, that he was leaning into this cantankerous personality. But Simpson goes on to say, face it, you're lucky to be living in America where you can get away with that horse shit and the commies and liberals you're in bed with too. Despite these fighting words, I'm still proud to call you a friend, Don. And that's what Dan Clowes wrote back. So I think it's a good criticism of the book, but obviously done as a joke. But I think it's fair. Then on this page, You get a lot more advertising in this issue. Like he's turning into like he realizes he needs to make a living at this basically, and I think he's seen enough financial success and is becoming cool enough that he's able to capitalize on that. But that cuts against the like anti kind of just anti everything vibe that is 8 Ball, and I'm assuming the anti-capitalist kind of vibes of the early grunge scene that this is tied to in my mind. So it's funny to me, but I do like that it's all hand put together. And here he's also just like rip zipatone, which is interesting. I guess the company Clowes. That's interesting to me for a different reason. I'll show in a couple pages. And then he's talking about getting music remade, and I like that interactive aspect of comics. Like, here's some things I like. Here's some things you could check out. Here's the thing my buddy's doing. I like that. That's fun. I feel like that's in the '90s the version of what we're all doing here on YouTube now, right? Like we can have this community, and they're trying to figure out like from fanzines and stuff how to have a community. So it feels very tied to the history of comics fandom how he approaches his book. Then you get this little one. Uh, Short story here, Ugly Girls. This is basically, he says, like, here I am, I'm just another see-through stand-in for the Dan Clowes. So obviously this is just another kind of autobiographical rant from Clowes. I do like these ones that are more speculative about society, even though they're still tainted with that cantankerous, like, I'm smarter than everybody, everyone's an idiot and an asshole vibe. That's like the worst part of myself that I see showing up in Clowes, and that's part of why I don't like it, because it's the part of my head that I'm trying to get under control, and it's just let loose on the page. And I don't know, I don't think it's healthy. Wouldn't want to engage in that. But I do like comics as a kind of essay system where people can talk about, like, I've been talking to Brandon and Sean about diary comics and journal comics, and if there's a difference, because Brandon's been doing some diary comics, and usually I complain about those, but every now and then you get memoir or diary comics that have something different to them. I've been trying to think what it is, and I think Clowes is actually doing the thing I like, which is instead of just telling me what happened moment to moment, day to day, it's like, well, this happened today and it made me think about this, and then it's a way for someone to like explore a topic in a more philosophical sense. And so Clowes doesn't do like the this happened to me today, but he does do this, like, I don't want to say philosophical because he's not too terribly deep, but he is just kind of putting out ideas about life on paper, and I like that. That's another one of these kind of communicative things, but his ideas are always just kind of obnoxious or repugnant. So here he's just like this whole thing about ugly girls. It's like, oh well, you're all these people who like beautiful girls, they're missing out on the subtlety of the ugly girls and the authenticity of that, and kind of going through and showing some different girls and what's so great about them. And then he goes through this right here, which is like the phrase can't judge a book by its cover is not entirely true. The astute observer can glean plenty of info from a person's appearance. Too much makeup indicates self-hatred. Excessive attention paid to appearance shows insecurity and vanity. Fashionable clothes, she's a follower. Dull and unfrugal. Radiates sense of selfishness and evil. And then here he goes to like an ugly girl and says, now what can we infer about this gal from her looks? Casual appearance indicates inner peace. Brainy, literate. Appears to me mature, friendly, and engaging. Secure in her femininity. I don't know, man, but my life experience has told me run the fuck away from people like that. They have no inner peace. They're probably brainy and literate, but definitely not mature. Maybe friendly and engaging, but I don't know. My experience is actually people like that. They may be vapid, but a lot of people like that. The reason they're like that is because they got their shit together. And a lot of people that look like that living in a fucking commune. So if that's his taste, that's his taste. But this little rant, where he kind of thinks he's got the whole world figured out. It's just a young man, and that's fine. Like people are figuring things out. I've ranted. I still rant. I'm ranting right now. We're all trying to figure this out. So I like the format. It's just with Clowes, it's never particularly formally compelling. He's very much a classic cartoonist. His technical chops are great, but as formalisms as a comic's not particularly compelling. And then the views themselves are just always something I want to argue with him about. So those are difficult for me. Here's another ad. We're getting more and more ads. I appreciate that they're all hand done, but it's starting to feel a little. You sure are selling me a lot of stuff here, buddy. But here he's selling other people's stuff, which is pretty cool. He's selling some of his friend's stuff as well as 8-Ball. So you have Real Stuff by Dennis Eichhorn, Naughty Bits by Roberta Gregory, Yahoo by Joe Sacco. Here you have Undeserving Existence by Terry Laban. So that's cool. I appreciate the group aesthetic of it. Here we go to Grist for the Mill. This is another Clowes walking around, overgeneralizing about everyone. But I find this interesting because earlier in the issue, he's complaining about how Zipatone went out. He couldn't get Zipatone anymore, and now all of a sudden you see him using an ink wash and killing it with the ink wash. I mean, right away, he's obviously used it before. If he hasn't used it before, he figured it out right away. So that's cool, and I suspect or I wonder if that's a response to the lack of Zipatone. It's interesting to see that in the same issue. But then he just goes, weasels, weirdos, irritating comic fans, obnoxious relatives. And his observations aren't wrong, but it's just, I mean, we're 8 issues in. And this whole story here is one of these things where he's saying, oh, come on, just quit, keep being weirdo fuck-ups. Like, you're giving me grist for the mill. You're giving me stories. And the whole story is just Dan Clowes wandering around looking for people to do something to make a comic out of. And he really doesn't find anything. And then he just shows look, people love it when you're mean in cartoons, and he makes this mean cartoon of a guy and gives it to him. And it's all just still really mean-spirited and selfish. Please keep being weirdos so I can make fun of you. But he goes out on this trip and says people are so fucked up and weird. It's great. I always have something to talk about. And then he made a whole comic about I don't know, no one's doing anything weird. Please be weird. So it's that kind of 90s ironic self-canceling thing that's, I get it. It was cool at the time, but I just don't think it ages well. Technically impressive. Some more Dan Pussy. So we're going to take more shots at the comic industry again. This is where it's this is the art kid, the comic kid who went to art school rather than the art kid who started making comics. Clowes is just too in love with comics. Obviously all that goes through his brain is comics. Comics. Nothing outside of that. But all it doesn't ever seem to be able to apply any of that to himself. At least the character of Clowes and how he presents himself always seems to be above everyone else, which I just don't buy. He's obviously as much of a collector nerd as the rest of these people. I really like here where he's aside from wheeling and dealing, there are a plethora of activities to be enjoyed at the con. And then he has this character talking about the panels. A show of amateur fantasy art followed by a seminar on Japanese sci-fi weaponry. Pinch me, I'm dreaming. He's obviously taking a pot shot at the guy. And he's got all these stickers. I Love Vincent, Doctor Who, Frodo Lives, Battlestar Galactica. I noticed #1 Cerebus fan. I like that. I believe in elves. But is it kind of taking pot shots at all of these as if they're just trash? Battlestar Galactica was really good. Lord of the Rings, legendary for a reason. Cerebus, obviously a great book. I don't know if Clowes is a Cerebus fan or he's making fun of Cerebus. I don't know if he likes these other things or if he's making fun of them, but it feels like he's making fun of them. So that's strange. Then we get another weird, surreal, makes no sense. Seems like he just wants to be Charles Burns, but is a little bit held back by his Gilbert Hernandez stiffness, whereas I think Charles Burns is a better artist. But I think Clowes is definitely influenced. But this strangeness here, where this squirrel is popping Q-tips out of its stomach, and then the tree groans at him. I don't know what it's about. This piece here, give it up. This is another one. This is where I started thinking about, this is just philosophical musings. And even though I don't really like the tone of the musings, I like the format of the musings. This is just him going through being jaded 90s fuck. Just existential crises. Nothing matters, so why try? Just give up. Fair. It's all true, but I don't think that that's the healthiest response to the fact of a meaningless universe is not to just give up. I mean, I guess, sure, do whatever. Another ad, so now we're doing Attention Art Lovers Silk Screen Prints. $60 a piece. Bro's making his money. And then here we get the David Greenberger interview format that I was missing from the front, but it's not in color. And this one's interesting because it's one person being interviewed. I like these the best. These are the most empathetic and thoughtful ones because they're just taking people at face value. And it let Clowes just draw his symmetrical faces that he likes, and it doesn't have the nastiness of everything else. And then this one, My Suicide. This is all about reasons to kill yourself. And again, this one is like this kind of speculative thing. And surprisingly, the tone of this one I like better. So even though the subject matter is pretty bleak, talking about suicide, he seems to be finding this positive in there that suicide can act as an escape button. And that if you take that idea seriously, not that you're necessarily planning on killing yourself if things go wrong, but if you take that idea seriously, then maybe you'll open up and you'll try some more stuff. Because it's like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, everything could totally fall apart. And then, like, the worst that can happen is you just take yourself off the board. So, like, he starts out small. Like, if you have to give an oral report in high school and you haven't started, then you can just kill yourself and you don't have to do it. Obviously, he's not suggesting, like, kill yourself to get out of doing work. Or just go have random sleazy sex. And if you get AIDS, fuck it, you can kill yourself. He starts leveling up. Like, if you got drafted, or if you had to go to prison, or what if you became president and everyone hated you? So it's bleak, but I think there's actually a positivity in that of, like, it's the YOLO thing. You only live once, and if it goes terribly wrong, there is a way out. We're not saying you have to take it, but go ahead and take the risk, because, if you wind up, like, homeless in the gutter with both your feet chopped off or something, there's a way out. So in all of the bleakness, I do find that one to be a bit more positive, and that makes me hopeful going forward that as he keeps that format going, he's learning how to tweak it a little bit more, and he seems to be becoming a bit more self-aware about the failings of the grouchy, just by the way he's like poking fun at it, at least in the letter column. So I'm curious to see if this goes further. While I'm here, I have to enjoy the number 9 cover right there. I don't usually talk about the covers much. I guess a lot of the covers are, I don't know, they're really well made. Like, I love the colors on here, but there's not a lot that jumps out at me. That's funny though. So anyways, that's issue 8. I'm still, I know I'm always kind of be like I don't like the tenor of it, but I am enjoying it. There's some fatigue too. There's a sense that I want to be done reading this. I'm only reading them one at a time, and I'm taking breaks in between. But every time I pick it back up, it's like, okay, well, I have to listen to Clowes complain about now. So there's some fatigue to it. But I am finding more and more things of worth as I go, and I'm really looking forward to whenever Ghost World kicks in. I don't know when that is, because I haven't read that work in a long time. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that. And as I do a quick flip through, I'm seeing that the production is, he's really trying more stuff with the production as well, color changes and things. So I'm still excited about reading this, but there is every time I pick it up, it's a little bit of like a deep breath. So anyways, thanks for following along as I continue to rant and complain about Dan Clowes ranting and complaining. Really appreciate it. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, there's 2 ways to support us. One is through Patreon. We really appreciate the support through that. We use that money to buy the books that we review, so we're always trying to turn that back around into the community somehow. And then the best thing that you can do to support the mission of Living the Line is support Sean as the publisher of Living the Line. So we'll take a look at some of the books that he has out now. The Eisner-nominated The Strange Death of Alex Raymond by Dave Sim and myself. This is a gorgeously illustrated and designed book. Dave doing most of the illustration. Amazing compositions throughout. What Dave is doing is he's recording his obsession with the death of master cartoonist Alex Raymond behind the wheel of Stan Drake's car when they got into a car crash. The best description of the book that I've heard is that it's like understanding comics with pages like this mixed with something like From Hell when you get into the theories about what actually happened with the car crash. And then with Sean on production, it's just one of the most gorgeously printed books you could get a hold of. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground. So they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. You know, what is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe